Welcome back, baseball family, to this week's episode of Ball Talk. We're very excited to introduce Got Your Answers, and we're going to listen to Hembo tell us why he thinks certain things are better than others right now.
Welcome back, baseball family, to another episode of Ball Talk. Today we have with us Hembo from ESPN. Welcome, Hembo. How are you today?
I'm doing outstandingly well. I'm looking at your hat. You're wearing a hat representing the Atlanta Braves, as you can see here on our Zoom. I'm a Phillies fan. I'm drinking out of a Phillies cup because my cup runneth over with wins this season. I will offer you the best of luck in your weird doubleheader on Monday against the Mets, and we'll see how the chips fall.
It's going to be weird for sure.
It is going to be weird. Yeah. I'm a Braves fan by way of TBS growing up. I've been a West Coast kid my whole life. And I actually got this hat on a trip out to Atlanta this year. It happened to match my shirt. So
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that are Braves fans because of the TBS deal. And I think it was sort of the perfect confluence of them getting all those rights and being nationally televised, along with the fact that they were so good over that prolonged period of time with so many memorable players. I think there are probably a lot of people your age that have the same story. They're Braves fans because of that, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No doubt.
I absolutely agree. For sure. Okay. Hembo is joining us because of his new book that's coming out with Mike Greenberg, Got Your Answers. We've got our copies, and we love it, by the way.
It's so good.
It's a ton of fun. This is, I don't want to call it a sequel to Got Your Number, but it's kind of a series, right?
Companion-ish.
It's like it's not like necessarily its son, perhaps its cousin, its nephew, and it's certainly related. It's in the lineage. So here's our idea, because I want to talk ball with you, so I'll get the spiel out of the way so we can have some more fun with it. But in a nutshell, we wrote Got Your Number 2 years ago. It's 100 chapters. Who owns every number in sports, 1 through 100? You and I talked about it then. People seem to like it a lot. But the one thing that we learned throughout the course of that time was people are even more into sports debate than they are into sports history. That book sort of majored in sports history. So Green and I went back to the drawing board last year and decided, let's put together a list of 100 sort of pressing, hotly debated sports questions. Let's do thousands of hours of research, debate the answers amongst ourselves, and spit out lists. Most things are, most of the chapters are a question followed by top 10 lists, as you guys have seen from having leafed through it. There's some top 5, there are some top 15s or 20s, but by and large, what we've done here is construct 100 pressing, hotly debated sports questions. We answer them as best we can with 200 to 300 word essays and lists that we consider thoroughly researched. And so I'm obviously super proud and excited to present it to the world. And so far, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive.
As it should be. We love
our feedback for it is overwhelmingly positive, and I'm going to say, on behalf of the me 2 years ago that read Got Your Number, I'm so happy to see Lou Gehrig way more represented.
Listen. So, as you well know, I'm an enormous baseball history fan, and so it pained me. It pained me to exclude Lou Gehrig from Chapter 4 in that book. To me, one of the most indelible records in all of baseball is 2130. Lou Gehrig had an extraordinary career, one in which he obviously finished with 493 homers. It would have been more than 600 if it weren't for the crippling disease that now bears his name, of course. He is inarguably, at least in my opinion, the greatest first baseman that ever lived, or at least certainly would have been, had it not been for his ALS diagnosis. He is the pride of the Yankees, and that's a franchise that have had so many legendary players, but he stands above all the rest of them. And so that's one of the things about this book, is that a lot of the things that we just couldn't quite get to in book number 1, because there can only be one number 23. There can only be one number 6. There can only be one number 8, etc. It's sort of better represented here. So as a fan of Lou Gehrig yourself, I can say that Cal Ripken was my favorite player growing up. And so Ripken passing Gehrig was one of the most formative moments in my sports fandom growing up. And so I'm glad to hear that you had the same experience as I did.
Yeah, so good.
Love it. All right, before we get too much further into it, I guess, we're going to play a game called Fair or Foul. Baseball Family is a new thing we're doing with second-time guests. So we're going to give Hembo 5 things. We want to know what he thinks about them. First thing first, Fair or Foul City Connect uniforms?
Foul. I think that traditional uniforms are far better than City Connects, but I also understand that, I'm the dinosaur that they're not appealing to anymore. Someday, my 9-year-old daughter then might wind up deciding that she really likes the fact that the Phillies are wearing black and gold and purple and turquoise and chartreuse uniforms on Friday nights, and maybe she'll want one of those. My personal opinion is that uniforms are best worn traditionally, because the matching of I'm a Phillies fan, as you know, as I've mentioned. So the cherry pinstripes to me are the stuff of legend. And when you go through team by team, that's so recognizable. I don't mind the City Connects with the Padres, who have been around since the 60s. But if you're team that's been around for more than a century, the idea that you're going to wear black pants and blue tops when you're a red color team on a Friday night is just super weird to me. So I'm saying foul, but I also recognize that I'm not the target demographic there, and it's just a matter of opinion.
I'm the same way, and as a Yankees fan, card carrying, we in our ivory tower appreciate that we did not get one.
Seriously.
So.
No reason.
All right,
to.
fair or foul?
An eyesore.
Pineapple on pizza.
Foul, because that's disgusting. So I'm a pizza snob. I live in North Jersey, and so I think that we have the best pizza on the planet here. But to me, like, pizza, good thing. Pineapple, good thing. Combination thereof, objectively bad thing. I'm not like a totally out on like the sweet plus savory, but it's way too sweet for something that good. Like, there's no reason to defile something good with pineapple. I don't even mind if you eat pizza and have pineapple for dessert, but the idea that you would combine the two, I would find to be somewhat sacrilegious.
Outstanding. Us too.
100%. Excellent. All right, I have another uniform question for you. Apparently, I'm the uniform guy. Players wearing their own team jerseys in the All-Star game.
That is obviously players wearing their own team jerseys in the All-Star game is fair. And make sure that I heard you correctly, because that's a big deal to a lot of fans. I understand why they're doing the jersey the way that they do, because they make money. Period. New paragraph. I'm a fan. I can hate the way that they look and the way that they feel. Like, we're never going back to the days where the leagues are separate, and I get that. But at minimum, like, the idea of the players representing their teams, their franchises, their cities in the All-Star game seems like a pretty low bar to clear. They can wear whatever they want during the Derby. They can try to sell whatever hats they want if they so choose. But for me, the idea that you should represent your franchise and your city and your team is a pretty straightforward one. It's something that a majority of baseball fans want. Rob Manfred has said as much. And to me, Major League Baseball has plenty of other streams of income. It's not like that merchandise is keeping them in the positive ledger for the year. Can't imagine. So, especially when you consider how ugly they are. So I'm fine if you want to sell all this stuff. But the idea that you should be wearing them during the All-Star game is obviously ludicrous. Maybe as I'm sort of just howling at the moon here for my traditional baseball soapbox.
I think it makes sense. You can still sell it, though, right? Like, you don't have to highlight it in the game. You can still sell it from the Derby.
No one's making you stop selling it. And I'm even open to the idea of adding like sort of a Pro Bowl skills challenge-esque exhibition thing, day, whatever, when Ellie De La Cruz races, I don't know, the fastest horse in the world, whatever. The idea of being able to have a televised event in which players are not wearing their jerseys, their team jerseys, and selling that stuff, to me, seems in play. But the All-Star game, to me, is a little bit too sacrosanct for them to be doing this nonsense with the jerseys. That's just my 2 cents.
I love it. And we've talked about a skills competition for years. Like, that needs to happen. Fair foul, bringing a glove to the ballpark as an adult.
So the cutoff age here is 12. This is something that we've debated on the radio a little bit. There are a variety of reasons why the age is 12. Now, there are probably exceptions that we can make. So before we had the netting, right, down the baselines, if you're there with your 6-year-old son and you're worried about a screaming line drive off the bat of Giancarlo Stanton if he happens to catch a fastball almost into the mitt, I get it. Like, you don't want your son to end up in the emergency room because a screaming line drive clocks him in the face. However, on balance, I think it's an immature look, and it also demonstrates that you just don't have full confidence in your hands. And that's really what I object to. At that point in your life, in my opinion, if a foul ball comes your way, if a home run falls into your lap, etc., you got to have hands that are soft enough to be able to absorb it. And so I don't like the idea of a grown man carrying a baseball glove into the stadium. I find it to be juvenile. To me, the cutoff age is 12 there. Once you graduate Little League, that's when you go to the ballpark without your glove.
I think it makes sense.
Feel strong.
He's making a lot of sense here, Brig.
All these questions, it seems I've thought about for many, many years.
That's awesome. Us too. That's why we asked him.
That's what makes baseball great.
Yeah.
All right, Brig, last one.
Okay.
Send it.
Fair or foul, steroid users in the Hall of Fame.
So the answer to that question has to be a lot more nuanced. I don't like the term steroid guys as a blanket statement when it comes to anybody that put up numbers between 1995 and 1985, really, and 2005, which is, generally speaking, baseball's era of non-testing. And here's what I mean by it. We know that during that period of time, steroids in baseball was something approximating the wild, wild west. No one knows for sure what percentage of players used or used regularly, but I think we can pretty confidently say now that enough players were using performance-enhancing drugs, as evidenced by the environmental changes in baseball, mostly with offense and power hitting skyrocketing during that time, to where we can make good faith arguments and say things weren't on the level. And so, for example, I view someone like Sammy Sosa, though he does not have a positive steroid test under his belt, it's pretty clear and obvious that Sammy Sosa used steroids and was a Hall of Fame worthy player because he used steroids. If you look at his stats with the White Sox, he was like a speedster first and foremost. Body changed physically to a large degree, hit more than 600 home runs, but I don't think anyone in their right mind thinks he did that by eating more meat and potatoes, right? And so in my opinion, Sammy Sosa is not a Hall of Famer because he was a product of steroids. An example of someone who was not, in my opinion, again, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. To me, that's why I'm not comfortable with the steroid guys debate. Neither Roger Clemens nor Barry Bonds were the product of steroids. Their longevity and the fact that what they accomplished late in their 30s, you could definitely say was largely because, or you could attribute to their very likely steroid use when using circumstantial evidence. However, if Barry Bonds had retired before ever playing a game for the San Francisco Giants when he just was in Pittsburgh, he'd be considered one of the best baseball players ever. If Roger Clemens had just retired after he pitched his last game for the Boston Red Sox, he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer and could have retired as one of the best pitchers ever. So who am I to penalize these guys who are merely adhering to the social norms at the time in Major League Baseball, who just so happen to be so disproportionately better than everyone else? If Barry Bonds had hit 65 home runs instead of 73, who knows? He might be in the Hall of Fame today because maybe we wouldn't have sniffed quite as hard. If Roger Clemens hadn't wound up winning 7 Cy Young Awards, and many of those in his 30s or even 40s, perhaps we would not have sniffed so hard. So in the end, it is to their detriment that they were so much better than the field and using steroids overwhelmingly likely at a time in which so many of their peers were, and just didn't happen. Like for certain, there are other guys, of course, that aren't implicated in Jose Canseco's book, but you can make some pretty obvious circumstantial arguments that they very likely used steroids, and there are already guys like that in the Hall of Fame. I don't want to name names for the sake of incriminating anyone I shouldn't. It's a long roundabout answer to say, I think the idea of answering that question fair or foul, rather than diving into each player individually, is to sort of cheapen the sacred nature of the Hall of Fame and what it means to us as baseball fans.
Totally required, nuanced answer.
Amen.
Okay.
And play ball. I mean, that was amazing.
Uh-huh. No, that's how I feel. Like I'm a Hall of Fame guy. I go practically every year with my buddies. I find the place to be charming, and the baseball is sort of holy of holies. But I want to make clear to people, like, there's two different parts there. Like, there's the plaque room, the gallery, where baseball's greatest players are enshrined, where they're glorified. And then there's the museum, where there's all sorts of Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens artifacts. Like, they're all over the place. So the idea that the Hall of Fame and museum are the same thing is simply not true. And all you have to do is spend 10 minutes there to know as much.
Yeah, we feel the same way. We look at it as a record book of the history of baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the
as
one
simply
side.
as I can put it, yeah. As simply as you could put it, I think that's a good way to characterize what the place means.
Yeah. How do you tell the story of baseball? And that's what they do. So
speaking of, ask that question. It's a great way to ask that question.
Speaking of scandals, I saw that you guys argue Shoeless Joe and the 1919 Black Sox are the greatest, or I should say, the number one scandal in the history of sports. I happen to agree with you, and I live in Greenville, South Carolina, where Shoeless Joe was, from and passed away here. We've got the museum
too, right?
And everything.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
The museum's there too. I was there a couple years ago.
Yep, it's here. So you believe, and you've stated here in the book, the two of you, that he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
That's
I
Green's
agree.
belief. That's Green's belief. I don't believe so.
Oh, you say no.
You don't believe so?
Yep,
I don't
we
believe
need
so.
to hear this. Tell us why.
Because for the longest time, and I'm talking about for nearly 100 years, maybe even 100 years, Shoeless Joe Jackson's Hall of Fame candidacy was built on pretty solid ground. If you look at his numbers in that series, hit 375, played an errorless outfield against Cincinnati, and generally speaking, performed well enough to where you could never convince yourself that he was part of overthrowing the series. But to me, the performance isn't really what's most germane to that debate. What's much more important is, did he take the money or not? Did he agree or did he not? How he performed on the field is obviously a data point, but the fact that we know that he took $5,000 means that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Like, we don't have to wonder whether or not Shoeless Joe Jackson took the money he was in on the fix. He took $5,000 of the $30,000 he was promised. And so like, as much as I hate to say it, I love Shoeless Joe Jackson. Babe Ruth said that his swing was the perfectest. And you could certainly make an argument that despite knowing what we know now, he belongs in the Hall of Fame in spite of. But you can't pretend that he's a victim of circumstance anymore based on what we know that he took. The idea that he was this underpaid left fielder isn't true. He was the second highest paid left fielder in the American League that season behind only Babe Ruth. The fact that we, for the longest time, believed that he had like no say in what happened isn't true because we know that he did take the money from Chick Gandil. So when you can, and also, by the way, under oath, admitted to it as much. What he said publicly was very different than what he said under oath. And because he became a sympathetic figure over the course of time, because Field of Dreams became a movie that we still love and enjoy, myself included, it's very easy to view him as the victim of circumstance, which he was. He was also, however, a full-grown man with agency that elected to take that $5,000.
Good point.
Well, my thing that I've always wondered too is the verbiage a lifetime ban or eternal ban? That's what I'm curious about with it all the time because you see forever and you also see lifetime, right?
We looked into that. He, in order to get in now, would require an overturn, for lack of a better term, by the commissioner's office. So you probably know this living in South Carolina. Every so often, people from his foundation, from the museum, will send a letter to the commissioner. As soon as Rob Manfred replaced Botzilla, it was one of the first letters that was in his his mailbox, and they always uphold the previous commissioner's decision. And I'm content with that. Would I love to see Shoeless Joe Jackson's plaque there? I would. But the fact that we know he did take the money, the fact that we do know what we know now, indicates to me like it could potentially be if not a slippery slope, breaking a 100-year-old precedent for which I'm just not entirely comfortable.
I agree with that as well. Performance-wise, I think he belongs in the Hall, but you're right.
I mean, he had 360 for his career. Is one of the very greatest players of all time. Had a higher batting average for Cleveland, in fact, than anybody had with any team in the history of Major League Baseball. He was an unbelievable player, and people forget he won the World Series 2 years before. That's his career is so much more than 1919, which is why it's just so a shame that that's all people will ever remember him for until the end of time.
It's true.
So I have a question about your lineup. It's the perfect lineup.
Let me pull up. What's the page number?
76 is yours. Okay.
76.
I love Ricky Henderson.
Your hymnals. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly right. I actually have it bookmarked. So I want you to pick apart why Ricky Henderson is not the best option in left field, because I love Ricky Henderson, the man of steel. Like,
Ricky Henderson is the greatest leadoff hitter of all time, only because Barry Bonds did not lead off. So there is just no question in my mind that if Barry Bonds had been a leadoff hitter, that he would have been the best one ever. He would have done all the on-base things that Ricky Henderson did, 80% of the fast things that Ricky Henderson did, with 4 times the amount of power that Ricky Henderson did. When you consider some of the guys that are leading off across baseball now, like Kyle Schwarber and Shohei Ohtani, it's not obvious to me that if we had the intelligence then as we do now in 2001 and 2 and 3 and 4, that Barry Bonds might have been leading off for the Giants in those seasons. Like, it's very possible that he could have been leading off games. We don't really care about the traditional sort of leadoff mold anymore. And so Greeny's 100% right that Ricky Henderson is the best leadoff hitter ever, but only among those that had the chance to do it.
Fair point.
So do you think it's actually, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Like, do you think if the Dodgers had not moved Ohtani to the leadoff spot, do you think they would have had continued success? Or he would have had the offensive output? Because I feel like that was a big part of them being able to maintain with Mookie Betts out.
You know, I have to look at his splits from the season based upon where he was occupied in the batting order. It is a really good question, though. I think had Mookie never gotten hurt, they would have gone Mookie, Shohei, and Freddie for probably the entire season. On balance, it's my opinion that you should be hitting your best hitter second, and that's Ohtani. But I also have the opinion that, with rare exception, your best hitter should be hitting at the top of the lineup, not to maximize RBI opportunities, but over the course of 162 to maximize the number of plate appearances. Because as I articulate in the book, the reason I'm hitting Babe Ruth second rather than third or fourth, it's because that's going to get me 20 or 30 or 40 more Babe Ruth at-bats in a season, and that's probably another 5 or 10 home runs.
Yeah, you mentioned you made that very clear. I think you're right.
I have his splits. This is the last thing we have before we got to let you go. But I have his splits for this season. So he has 399 plate appearances leadoff, 312 in the second spot. He's got 314 average in the second spot with 19 homers at 46 RBIs and a 295 average, 1058 OPS, 34 bombs in the leadoff spot. Seems like he likes that leadoff spot.
All right, you might see that on an ESPN radio show near you forthwith.
Yeah. Get after it, Hembo.
Love it.
All right, boys.
Hembo, thank you so much for joining us again. Check out Got Your Answers. You can get it anywhere, right?
You can get it anywhere books are sold, but before you let me go, I just need you guys to give me either each of you, either your biggest objection or your favorite argument that we made that convinced you that you were wrong about something. I got another couple of minutes. So I need you to give me an answer to that question off the very top of your head.
I'm telling you, the Mike Tyson being omitted from the top 10 heavyweights, that was a little hard for me to handle. And I understand the argument you made about his occupation in the mines and in the culture like that. You're right. You're not wrong about that. He was this avatar of a man, basically. And he was playing a role the whole time. I've read a lot about him. And he's one of my favorite characters in sports, but yeah, omitting him was tough for me to handle.
That's great feedback.
Muhammad Ali at the top makes sense. Perfect sense.
So for your top 10 heavyweight boxers of all time, Mike Tyson's in your top 10, not in ours. That's totally fair. What do you got as your biggest objection or your favorite argument that we made that convinced you that you were wrong about something?
The biggest objection for me would have to be Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. hitting back-to-back home runs. I'm super biased. Griffey was my favorite player ever. Lifetime Mariners fan. Lifetime of sadness, obviously. But to me, that is one of the biggest moments, like one of the coolest moments in sports, that his dad came over to play and then they go back-to-back. Like, so cool.
The only reason we have Tiger and his dad and Tiger and his son ahead of them is obvious because it's 3 generations. It's like one of the cool moments of connectivity in the history of sports, but I'm not sure that we will ever see something again like what the Griffeys pulled off. And that's inclusive of Bronny James, of course.
Yeah. Okay, my last one. I did want to talk about this. Chapter 31 or question 31 is greatest rivalries in college football history. Top 5 rivalries in college football history. And the only thing I need to say is go Army.
Beat Navy.
That's it.
So you agree with us putting that above Ohio State, Michigan?
Yes, I do. And I think if there's a number 6,
tell why though, Brig. Tell him why though, Brig.
Well, the history, the representation of America as a whole.
That's not why. That's not why. Brig's an Army vet. That's why.
I'm an Army vet. Yeah, okay.
That's okay.
All right, you're right.
That's okay. You're allowed.
Yeah, but number 6 for me would have been the Holy War, BYU Utah. That's what I'd have put it.
The reason we only have 5 there rather than 10 is because we couldn't separate the 6 through 10 adequately enough to where we felt like we could justify putting the Holy War, for example, over fill in the blank other great rivalry, the Egg Bowl or whatever. It was too hard for us to separate, so we felt most confident in these 5 and we stuck with them.
Makes perfect sense.
Love it. Hembo, you had a fantastic role in this. I love the trivia questions, every single question. Again, get it wherever you can. We're going to be doing a giveaway, and we'll have more information on that.
Oh, that's tremendous. I really appreciate you guys chatting. Have a great day, and I appreciate the plug.
Thanks, man. We'll have you back. Appreciate you.
Welcome back, baseball family. Thank you for joining us for this fantastic episode of Ball Talk with Hembo. I love having Hembo on, by the way. Tons of energy, blows through a lot of topics really fast, and it's really fun. But again, the book is Got Your Answers. Like he said, it's kind of like the cousin or some kind of relative to Got Your Number. We're going to be doing a giveaway, so check back on Tuesday on the big episode. We will tell you how you can enter, where you can enter, because we have a copy just for you. In fact, Brig, it's this one right here to show you.
Oh, would you look at that?
Hey-o.
Hey-o.
But in the meantime, don't forget to stock up on seeds. Go to schnookseatery.com. Get yourself ready for the postseason because we're there, buddy. We're there. I love it. So head over to schnookseatery.com. Use code BTPOD at checkout to get yourself 10% off of your order. Support your mouth, support your wallet, and support the show with the best seeds ever. And you can also support the show over on patreon.com. You can hit the link down in the description or head to patreon.com and search Baseball Together. We have 5 tiers of support from $1 all the way up to a comically large $500, where I made some promises that Brig will be following through on.
I will be.
So go check those out. Go see what they are if you're interested. you can pay $500 a month, and we'll do that, whatever it is. If not, you can do the $1 a month.
We'll do whatever it is.
Well, you will.
Rick will do whatever he said.
I don't think I made any promises for myself in there. I was like, Brig will also do this. But anyway,
yeah.
If you just want to do $1 a month of support, you can. You'll get a free sticker out of the deal, and you'll also get the bullpen cut, which is where we had some extras conversation with Hembo before he had to get rolling. We do that all the time with people, and it's a lot of fun, and we do it with every episode, every single week. But baseball family, in the meantime, we will catch you next week.